Sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
As the world watches and listens in horror, the peaceful pro-democracy demonstration in China comes to a violent and bloody end.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wolves hiding nearby, whispering do or die around me. You say your last good night while I begin
There is another very important phase of warfare. It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
The target of psychological warfare is against the enemy's mind.
It is words and ideas.
The ammunition used by Psywar.
Its mission is to influence the thoughts of the enemy soldier, and at the same time
is expected and encouraged to study foreign languages and the social sciences such as history, economics, and sociology. He must have a broad and sympathetic understanding of all phases of human experience.
gripping at my skin, the walls of night close in.
but the use of this force as an integral part of combat has now taken on new form.
As I wait to say my last goodbye.
These are the Psy-War soldiers.
Caught Up is an echo chamber for content creators. Almost all content on this show, Caught Up, is created by citizen journalists. I share content created by citizen journalists whom I believe to be the best at finding facts buried deep into the abyss, or outlets whom I believe to be the best for verifiable information. We have to operate within their system, and we only have the information they allow us to have. These individuals who nerd out on fact-finding missions and then add their opinion to better inform me, to make the best choice for me, in this war of narratives is Resolute. This information war is a battle for your mind and ultimately compliance. Mainstream media would have you believe that an echo chamber promotes the spread of misleading information or fake news, thereby reinforcing one's confirmation bias. So, I am excited to share the content in hopes you will turn off mainstream media, whom I believe is just another version of entertainment. So again, welcome to Caught Up.
All right, guys. Welcome to Caught Up. It's episode 56 today. Damn, I got that echo in my ear again. I don't know what the hell it is. I got the croup, so if I cough or do something, I apologize for it. Not the best feeling at the moment. But anyway, we had some information come out today that was pretty good. It was that report for COVID, and it's the final report, so to speak. So want to do a little bit of that, go into that a little bit and see feeling at the moment. But anyway, we had some information come out today that we'll get into that. So also Doge. I know everybody's talking about Doge and all that good stuff, but you know, Badlands Media with John and the rest of them, they went through the article pretty good, him and Chris, and I'm going to spend about 25 minutes on it, I guess, maybe, and then we'll get into that 500-page report, basically by the American tax people. We paid for that, and go into it detail by detail, at least some of it. It's a big thing. The most important parts, the parts where they removed or stripped your constitutional rights, made mandates, tried to get you to use your take a shot, they used your family and your job and everything else that comes along with that to to get you to comply. So it just stinks. We've been preaching this stuff since 2020, when all the stuff came out in January and February and all that. Here we are 4 years later, and still no origin of COVID, because it's the flu. Not found in an animal or a food market, but in a lab where they're messing with stuff because they have these so-called vaccines ready and available, and in order to get that to work, they have to create the pandemic. And apparently the American people, we pulled them right out of bankruptcy, man. Them big ass pharma companies, because they didn't have anything new to show for. They needed a pandemic. So did the deep state. So did the Biden administration. So did the Obama administration. So did all them son of a bitches up there. Whether they got an R beside their name or a D beside their name. And do you realize none of them had to take that? But you did. You had to have a passport to move within society. You had to learn to social distance. You had to do all of these things to comply in order to be a part of society. And the report comes out. It's damning. The WHO and all you medical professionals out there, my friends included, family members even maybe, you didn't do your due diligence, the Hippocratic Oath. You didn't do your research. You worried about a paycheck. and you did what they told you, and they got their information from a piece of paper. And there's no scientific fact or proof for any of it. Not a mask, not social distancing, not closing schools down, not even the so called shot. Nothing. It was a psyop. Sort of. It was an actual psyop because they got the biggest part of the American population to bend. Not all of us, though. Not all of us, though. So, before I get into that, we'll get into the Doge real quick. Doge. Doge. Doge is right there. Yeah. Right here's on the X. This is their official X platform, and they're going to have information on there more often than not, apparently. But yeah. Oh man. Okay, hang on, guys, 1 second. There we go. Okay. All right. So, as I told you guys, John Harold and Chris Paul. I think Ghost is on the show too, but they give us really good insight. Hang on, guys. Technology has done its thing again. I had this already loaded and ready to go. What the crap? Wow.
From Elon and Vivek from in the journal. Do you have the highlights from that?
I didn't highlight this one because on my show I went through the whole thing. It's not terribly long. We don't have to go through all of it, but there are some cool points because they basically describe the ways that the
I'm gonna go through this article. It's not the same article that they're reading from, but it's similar. And as they're talking about it, I'll highlight the spots that go along with it.
that the system's going to be taken apart. And they kind of give it all away in the first paragraph there about how most of what the government does, it's not actually allowed to do.
Okay, Elon Musk and Vivek, the Doge plan to reform government following the Supreme Court's guidance will reverse a decades-long executive power grab. Yeah, I don't want to read through the whole thing, but
No, we don't have to.
We'll see how it goes. I'll give a few paragraphs to read. Our nation was founded on the basic idea that the people we elect run the government. That isn't how America functions today. Most legal edicts aren't laws enacted by Congress, but rules and regulations promulgated by unelected bureaucrats, tens of thousands of them each year. Most government enforcement decisions and discretionary expenditures aren't made by the democratically elected president or even his political appointees, but by millions of unelected, unappointed civil servants with government agencies who view themselves as immune from firing thanks to civil service protections. This is
go ahead.
I was just gonna read this next paragraph and let's talk about it.
That is a communist administrative state they just
100%.
described. And we don't have real elections and the employees can't be fired. That means that no one in government is accountable.
100%. And I'm glad people are like, this is stuff we've highlighted for a long time. I mean, we're not the only ones, but
sure.
it's hitting mainstream, and they're like campaigning and talking about destroying it. It's great. This is anti-democratic and antithetical to the founder's vision. It imposes massive direct and indirect costs to taxpayers. Thankfully, we have a historic opportunity to solve the problem. November 5th, voters decisively elected Donald Trump with a mandate for sweeping change, and they deserve to get it. President Trump has asked the two of us to lead a newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to cut the federal government down to size. The entrenched and ever-growing bureaucracy represents an existential threat to our republic, and politicians have abetted it for too long. That's why we are doing things differently. We are entrepreneurs, not politicians. We will serve as outside volunteers, not federal officials or employees. Unlike government commissions or advisory councils or committees, we won't just write reports or cut ribbons. We'll cut costs. Let me see how long this is. This is pretty good so far. I actually haven't even read this yet. So, President has asked, I just read that. We're assisting the Trump transition team to identify and hire a lean team of small government crusaders, including some of the sharpest technical and legal minds in America. This team will work in the new administration closely with the White House Office of Management and Budget, which will be manned by Russell Vogt, which, or I don't know if I'm saying that last name right, but talked about him a lot in the Devo series. He was in that same position prior.
Yep.
Which I think is fascinating. Like if you're going to be cutting a lot of stuff that has to do with the budget, like he has it all mapped out from his last time there. Like he's going to be a great resource for that. We'll focus particularly on driving change through executive action based on existing legislation rather than by passing new laws. So can't wait for these new executive orders that are going to be coming out. Our North Star will reform will be the U.S. Constitution, with a focus on two critical Supreme Court rulings issued during President Biden's tenure: West Virginia versus the EPA, which you talked about earlier, and then Loper Bright versus Raimondo,
which is
Chevron doctrine, and held that federal courts should no longer defer to federal agencies' interpretations of the law. Let's see. When the president nullifies thousands of such regulations, critics will allege executive overreach. In fact, it will be correcting the executive overreach of thousands of regulations promulgated by administrative fiat that were never authorized by Congress. The president owes lawmaking deference to Congress, not to bureaucrats deep within federal agencies. The use of executive orders to substitute for lawmaking by adding burdensome new rules is a constitutional affront. But the use of executive orders to roll back regulations that wrongly bypass Congress is legitimate and necessary to comply with the Supreme Court's recent mandates. And after those regulations are fully rescinded, a future president could simply flip the switch and revive them, but would instead have to ask Congress to do so.
Yeah, couldn't
simply flip a switch and revive them.
So President Trump can get rid of them, and they can't just bring them back, because now, according to the Supreme Court, the Congress would have to set up these agencies and delegate to them specific authorities, none of which were important, like things that should be voted on or have accountable elected people behind them. It really is incredible how quickly it all can go away.
Yeah, this is very interesting, especially like with the executive order stuff. But I'm trying to think of how we can tie this to election reform. So, like, first of all, he's going to be bypassing Congress, and one of our issues with our fraudulent election system is the people that get put into Congress, which in previous administrations or through other means, like they could stonewall and block a lot of the stuff Trump wants to do. But they're basically saying right here, we're going to bypass all the unelected or selected bureaucrats and just do whatever we need to do. And then, but how can they fix our elections doing something like this? Like, can they get rid of CISA and some of these other agencies that are embedded in our election infrastructure?
I think that's certainly possible. I mean, that's the answer to that is yes. Whether that's the strategy, I don't know. Some of the stuff's going to have to be fixed at the state level and is not going to be up to Donald Trump to fix. But, he can help by making sure the entire country knows that our elections are fake.
Yeah. To talk about a drastic reduction in federal regulations provides sound industrial logic for mass headcount reductions across the federal bureaucracy. The president can use existing laws to give them incentives for early retirement and to make voluntary severance payments to facilitate a graceful exit. So, when we were at GART, we had a lady stand up talking about how she's at the DOD. I know what my job does is like irrelevant and like I'm overpaid. It was it was interesting what she was saying, but she said, I am concerned because like this is my livelihood. Well, here they're basically saying like we understand that, and you will get severance or some sort of early retirement incentives. Conventional wisdom holds that statutory civil service protections stop the president or even his political appointees from firing federal workers. The purpose of these protections is to protect employees from political retaliation. But the statute allows for reductions in force that don't target specific employees. So basically, it's like, doesn't matter who we fire if we fire everybody in that department. I'm here for that. Finally, we are focused on delivering cost savings for taxpayers. Skeptics question how much federal spending DOGE can tame through executive action alone. They point to the 1974 Impoundment Control Act, which stops the president from ceasing expenditures authorized by Congress. Mr. Trump has previously suggested the statute is unconstitutional, and we believe the current Supreme Court would likely side with him on this question. That's interesting.
There's also a thing in the just in the paragraph before, and we don't have to go back to it, but he basically made the point that because they've all been working from home for so long, they like even forcing them to come to the office 5 days a week would mean that they would see themselves out. And you kind of have to wonder if some of this stuff hasn't already been happening. I mean, they genuinely haven't been working in years at some of these offices.
Oh,
today they said the federal government owns or runs like 8,000 buildings that they heat and cool and provide electricity for, where no one goes to work.
It's crazy. It's insane. Yeah, the Supreme Court would side with them on the unconstitutionality of it. But even without relying on that view, DOGE will help end federal overspending by taking aim at the $500 billion plus in annual federal expenditures that are unauthorized by Congress or being used in ways that Congress never intended, from $535 million a year to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and $1.5 billion for grants to international organizations to nearly $300 million to progressive groups like Planned Parenthood.
NGOs.
I mean, yeah, NGOs, but also like think of State Department and the USAID, like all the foreign money we give away to all these countries. Like that's hundreds of billions of dollars right there too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's crazy. The federal government's procurement process is broken. It's gone unexamined for years. The Pentagon recently failed its 7th consecutive audit, suggesting that the agency's leadership has little idea how its annual budget of more than $800 billion is spent. And that's actually interesting to me because I noticed the other day that 3 days before that article came out, or the report about them failing that audit for the 7th year in a row, Storch had released the guidance for criminal investigations of fraud offenses for within the DoD. So like those got to be connected, or maybe it's not, but I mean, it seems unlikely to just be a coincidence.
Well, and to that point, I've also been writing now for a while about 2 places, Mali/Nigeria /Burkina Faso, which are places in Africa, countries that all touch in Africa, Northwest Africa. Ukraine has been sending money to ISIS there to overthrow the governments, like to try to overthrow the governments there. These are all governments that are backed by Putin, where the Wagner Group is there training them, helping them fight ISIS. We also have reports now recently over the past 2 weeks in Syria, where Ukraine is sending not only money, but also special forces into Syria to train ISIS to overthrow Assad. So, and that money is probably it actually most certainly is coming from the money that we are sending, the DoD is sending to Ukraine, to Zelensky to fight Putin.
Well, see, that's where it gets interesting, because the DoD is sending weapons. The money is coming through the State Department. But I mean, both of them are probably being misappropriated, misused anyway. So yeah, that if the correlation there it exists. So it'll be interesting to see if we ever actually get to the bottom of the Ukraine money pit or whatever, because we know there's bullshit going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, back to this. Critics claim that we can't meaningfully close the federal deficit without taking aim at entitlement programs like Medicare and Medicaid, which require Congress to shrink. But this deflects attention from the sheer magnitude of waste, fraud, and abuse that nearly all taxpayers wish to end, and that DOGE aims to address by identifying pinpoint executive actions that would result in immediate savings for taxpayers. Make executive orders great again, guys. Can't wait. With a decisive electoral mandate and a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court, DOJ has a historic opportunity for structural reductions in the federal government. We are prepared for the onslaught from entrenched interests in Washington. We expect to prevail. Now is the moment for decisive action. Our top goal for DOJ is to eliminate the need for its existence by July 4th, 2026, the expiration date we have set for our project, and the kickoff of the 250th anniversary of our nation's founding.
Yeah, I think Trump said that the birthday party is going to be from Memorial Day 2025 until July 4th, 2026.
Yep.
But you know what I think is interesting about that date is we're always focused on the Constitution being the founding document, but the 250th birthday is the anniversary of the Declaration. It's not the anniversary of the Constitution, the anniversary of the Revolution. And so I don't know what they're trying to say there, but maybe they're like pointing to the country prior to the ratification of the Constitution.
Trump had
We did have one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would argue the Declaration of Independence in a lot of ways is more important than the Constitution because it really was the start. It also kind of gives the mandate for what's happening. Ultimately, the Bill of Rights is, I think, supersedes the Constitution, is more important than the Constitution anyway. So just my opinion.
Yeah, Trump, that reminded me of Trump had a couple executive orders, going back to Trump's old executive orders, talking about the 250th anniversary of America's founding. This is back in
Okay, so that's a Wall Street Journal article or opinion with Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy, if I'm saying that correctly. They go into pretty good detail about how they want to handle things. They make it very clear that they're consulting for the most part, but if they can make it all work to show just how much useless spending, taxpayer money, overpacked and stuffed to the gill agencies, and somebody's boss being the boss of somebody's boss of somebody's boss. There's 4 of them, and then the one guy or gal that does the work is doing it all, answering to 4 or 5 of them. Well, it's probably time to cut out 3 or 4 of them and just keep the one, and maybe give the one that's doing all the work a little bit more help. So, where's that? That's it right there. So that's Trump's 2.0. First look at the Department of Government Efficiency. And as I said, you can right there. That's where you'll find them on X. And they do, or they haven't yet. I mean, they've posted some things where they got like 14 or 15 different things at the moment. I think it says 14. But anyway. That's a brief breakdown of who DOJ is, Department of Government Efficiency, and what is outlined for them to do. And like I said, I think that Badlands Media does an excellent job at going through that article through the Wall Street Journal. And again, I apologize, I'm not feeling the greatest. And but the report, the big thing is what this right here is what it's all about. Yeah. That right there. Uh-oh. Coronavirus pandemic. That's what it says. Dear colleagues, it's been my distinct pleasure to lead the select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic for the 118th Congress. Now, this is called the final report of the select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic, Committee on Oversight and Accountability. If we think there's going to be any accountability, I highly doubt it. The Faucis and the Bricks and all these people that are mentioned in this, the WHO, Tedros, Joe Biden, all of that, they're all not going to see any type of I don't know, punishment from the repercussions that they put on the American public, let alone the world. I get that this is an American thing, but Corona was not. Corona was a worldwide thing, and it was a fake thing, and sort of like our elections, it was just fake. It doesn't really exist the way that they promoted it to be. And with these final reports now, shame on them and shame on the medical industry, shame on the people within the community that we live in, family members, friends, whatever. You didn't know the truth and you ran with it anyway. And I'm sure you'll be sorry, and you'll do better next time, and all those things. But in 2020, 4 years ago, that didn't work, and it wasn't cool at all. So let's go through this article. Whoops. This article. All right. This right here, guys, it's 557 pages long. It's from the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic with Chairman Brad Winstrup, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It's the final report. And I just want to go through some stuff that, as I said at the beginning, where it talks about all the things that they did that was illegal. So it says the possibility that COVID-19 emerged because of a laboratory or research-related accident is not a conspiracy theory. EcoHealth Alliance, Inc. and Dr. Peter Daszak should never again receive U.S. taxpayer dollars. Remember, folks, I didn't write this article. This is from our federal government. This is your tax dollars at work. So while you watch or listen to how I read it and you want to, I don't know, criticize it or whatever, I would suggest that you go to this, the final report. You can find it on the internet just like I did, and look for it for yourself, and pay close attention to the detail. It gets really boring going through a lot of it, but there's a lot of detail in it. Scientific messaging must be clear and concise, backed by evidentiary support, and come from trusted messengers, such as frontline doctors treating patients, not politicians, not lobbyists, not your fucking next door neighbor. Public health officials must work to regain America's trust. Americans want to be educated, not indoctrinated. This sick dude, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, participated in medical malpractice and publicly covered up the total number of nursing home fatalities in New York. In addition to these notable bipartisan successes, the Select Subcommittee developed extensive findings, some of which include the U.S. National Institute of Health funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan Institute of Virology. Operation Warp Speed was a tremendous success and a model to build upon in the future. Did you hear that? That's the only part that I think that Donald Trump has his hands on is Warp Speed. Because the rest of that's pretty much deep state. But it says it was a tremendous success and a model to build upon. Rampant fraud, waste, and the abuse plagued the COVID-19 pandemic response. Pandemic-era school closures will have enduring impact on generations of Americans' children. And these closures were enabled by groups meant to serve those children. The Constitution cannot be suspended in times of crisis, and restrictions on freedoms sow distrust in the public health. That should have been the top of the list right there. The Constitution cannot be suspended. I don't know how many people I told at work, how many people I told in the stores, family members or whatever, just because there's a pandemic, a so-called pandemic, the Constitution still exists. In this country, I don't know about outside the borders of this country. Frankly, I don't even care. But in our country, the Constitution is superseded by nothing. And no one. The prescription cannot be worse than the disease, such as the strict and overly broad lockdowns that led to predictable anguish and avoidable consequences. And the shot never helped, guys. So here's the prefaces and all this good stuff, but we're going to go on down. See, all right, we'll read a little bit of it. The origins of the coronavirus pandemic, including but not limited to the federal government's funding of gain-of-function research. And this tells you where you can go to find it. The failures of the National Institute of Health and National Institute of Allergy. The efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency of the use of taxpayer funds and relief programs. Flaws in the pandemic program oversight. The implementation or effectiveness of any federal law or regulation applied, enacted under consideration to address the coronavirus. Over-reliance on the World Health Organization. The strategic national stockpile was not prepared to address a national viral pandemic. The United States unsecure supply chain risks, a future failed pandemic response. Risks of future, The 6-foot social distancing requirement was not supported by science. Masks and mask mandates were ineffective at controlling the spread of COVID-19. Unscientific COVID lockdowns caused more harm than good. Despite lacking scientific basis, vaccine passports became a de facto lockdown for unvaccinated Americans. If you didn't have one, they wanted you to stay home. Former New York Governor Cuomo, March 25th order was medical malpractice, and the New York Executive Chamber attempted to cover it up. It goes on about him. Well, testing for COVID-19 was flawed. Like it didn't work, it wasn't real, it didn't exist. Utilizing public-private partnership resulted in a readily available and accurate test. They didn't do that. Rapidly implemented travel restrictions can save lives. Didn't work. Government perpetuated COVID-19 misinformation. Public health officials incorrectly characterized the lab leak theory as a conspiracy theory. The Biden administration employed undemocratic and likely unconstitutional methods to fight what it deemed to be misinformation. The Biden administration and many public health officials exaggerated the power of COVID-19 vaccines. And the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and other public health officials falsely implied that ivermectin was only used for horses or cows. Do you see all of this that's being reported here? They went on for several years. They made money like it was, I mean, just crazy, you know. So I know that sometimes we forget about things. So here's a quick reminder. This is a show that I did. It was my 4th episode. Caught Up.
Do that just yet. So I have a video that I want you guys to see. It's a few minutes long, but it's a commercialism. Just exactly what they did, how they did, what they used to get into your mind, to make you conform. Just the narrative, totally what they tried to do here. So, okay, give me 1 second. We're gonna go right to this video.
First opened our doors.
Since 1926.
Since 1978.
For 60 years.
For 75 years.
For over 80 years.
In 90 years.
Over 100 years. Nationwide has been on your side.
Restaurants have always been there for you.
Nissan has been with you through thick and thin.
We will do what we've always done.
Take care of people.
We're people.
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 People. Family.
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 Family. Family.
Family.
Family.
Family.
Families are families.
Families.
Even now.
Especially now.
Especially now.
Right now,
It's time of social distancing.
while things have slowed down, as we turn more inside,
While the doors may be closed.
while the distance between us has gotten bigger.
The more we stay apart,
We still find ways to stay close, even when we're apart.
even if we can't stand closer than 6 feet.
We can all stay connected to work, school, and most importantly, to each other.
There's still ways to touch each other.
All without leaving the comfort and safety of your home.
Without leaving the safety of your home.
From home.
Home. Your home.
At home. 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 Home.
Home. Home.
That's the key.
And we'll get through this. Together.
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 Together. Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
MasterCard.
Remember that? all them clapping, coming together like they did, makes me sick now when I go back and look at what I see there. You know what I mean? The propaganda that they used, the narrative that they used. Did you see that commercial or that video there? There's all those corporate entities there. You got Ford, Lincoln, MasterCard, you got just all of them, Dunkin' Donuts. You saw them all, you know what I mean? They made these commercials. They made you, did you hear the music in the beginning, sort of somber and sad, we're all apart. Basically, it was the stay-at-home time, that was the 2 week, the flatten the curves, all those words, all those social distancing, all this stuff like that, all commercialized, all through corporate, all through mainstream media, all through social media. They didn't slow down. They all intertwined. And then you had an administration come in and they took this thing just, a little bit further. And to beat it all, they don't even care. They don't even care how it was created, where it comes from, and all that. And so as we go through this episode, we go through these past articles, where we got never let a pandemic go to waste, and then they come out and this is a pandemic, and then and so on and so forth. It just sort of goes from that to the so-called vaccine mandate, the push from OSHA, employers. You see.
That's back in May. That was back in May when I did that. Back in May when I made that show, where I went through the articles from 2020, all this, that, and the other. But it was just kind of neat to be able to pull that up and share that again, that commercial. All those things went into play, and now we got this big report. Yeah, it says all these things that they did were illegal. We tried to tell people. I tried to tell people.
Do that just yet. So
okay. Let's see. The development of vaccines and treatments and the development and implementation of the vaccination policies for federal employees, members, and of the armed forces. I wonder what I do with that. See if I can't find it. Oh, hang on. I know exactly where it's at. Right here. Right there. Members of Congress, staff, exempt from Biden COVID-19 vaccine mandate. This is September 10th, 2021. So it says Biden's sweeping federal employee vaccine mandate announced this week does not apply to members of Congress, employees who work for Congress, or the federal court systems. I was just trying to remind people of just exactly what they did. So while those up there that are fighting for you, these subcommittees and these final reports, just remember, none of them had to take that damn shot, man. It wasn't a mandate for them. It was only a mandate for you and me. I didn't take it. I stood. I wasn't a pansy. I didn't allow people to influence me, including my wife. Not on feelings, not on family, not on grandparents, not on infants. We were nervous and scared, and we wanted to do the right thing. They really scared my wife. Really scared my wife. When I say they, I'm talking about the news agencies. I'm talking about, social media. I'm talking about your local doctors, nurses, your friends, and your family. Because they all read the same piece of fucking paper, a script. But it took people like us to say, that's not what we're doing. Not in our home, not in our family. Now, I didn't force anybody to not do anything. We just talked about all the options out there. And the biggest option that was out there that was talked about was the fact that none of this had any time in science. When people say that you're not vaccinated, you're unvaccinated, it's because a COVID shot. And I'm clearly vaccinated. Took all that garbage they gave me from the time I was a baby, all the way up into through school and all that. But when I became middle 40s and I watched this shit play out, and I have common sense, even though I went to a public school in East Tennessee, I had some smart folks in my family, my parents, that raised us to ask why, to question things. Why? Why would you do that? Where's the science at? For example, I was in Walgreens during this, and these people came in that were young adults who just had a baby, and it must have maybe it was 21, closer to 22 at the time, somewhere in there. And the pharmacist came out and told her that that shot wouldn't affect her baby breastfeeding. And I looked at them and said, whoa, they didn't do any testing to support that. He's reading from a piece of paper. And if I were you, I might reconsider that, because here you are. It's a little over a year now. And then guess what? Over time, we found out that wasn't real. It wasn't true at all. And a lot of it's in this 557-page report. So the Walgreens in the town that I live in, the pharmaceuticalist, the big guy back there, he lied. Absolutely lied. He just read from the piece of paper that was given to him to save his ass and his job and his comfortable little life. I get it. I absolutely understand it. I didn't do that. I fought with my employer. I didn't take the shot. Never took the shot. As far as I know, my wife and kids didn't take the shot. Could be wrong. But we have more common sense than that. And we're better for it. So we'll get back to this article. Actually, this report, it's not an article. It's absolutely fact. It says the presidential candidate Biden and vice presidential candidate Harris may have contributed to early distrust in Operation Warp Speed. See that? That's all narrative right there, folks. The decision to override the advisory committee on immunization practices. The Biden administration arbitrarily and without scientific support announced that vaccine boosters would be available to all Americans. Their words, guys, not mine. I didn't write this article. I wish I would have, this report. U.S. Center for Disease and Control and Prevention, Rochelle Walensky, overruled expert advisors in the apparent attempt to satisfy unelected Joe Biden's arbitrary vaccine approval goals. This is the lady that took over the other dude at the CDC. These are the agencies. These are the agencies that Doge needs to stop funding and damn near dismantle. The CDC, the NIH, the FDA, all these agencies, they need to go. Look, back when they were first created, maybe they were doing what they were supposed to. But I can tell you over the last 30 years, they're not. They're just money laundering companies. They gave you a shot They had shit moving in it. I mean, when you look at the stuff under the microscope, it's got stuff moving in it. Blood clots. I mean, I know people who have had heart attacks, stroke, and one who even died. All from what? The shot that they took that was advised to them by their doctor based on their age and the fear of they might spread it to their family and the fear of maybe never allowed to go outside again. The sky is falling. All these fears. And they rolled with it. It's a travesty, folks. We should be outraged. Big time. The Biden administration sidelined senior scientists after they expressed concerns regarding a rapid pace of review of Pfizer's biologic approval applications. It's Pfizer there. The Biden administration accelerated the approval of Pfizer's biologics approval application to impose vaccine mandates. The Food and Drug Administration officials refused to rebut allegations that Biden White House was involved in the Pfizer biologics approval application. Oh, I apologize, guys. Public health officials disregarded natural immunity. Do you believe that? This is your health department. This is your, your local hospital, your emergency room, your nurses. I mean, I have people in my family. My mother was in the medical field my whole life. Friends in the medical field who openly said I was dumb, who bribed their kids and their grandkids with vacations and games and everything else in order to get them to take a shot because the federal government said you had to. They trampled on the very paper that we call the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And all for what? Men, where are you at? Our military. I mean, that's a whole other fucking story there, guys. It's a whole other show there, man. What they did, not just to the public, but what they did to our military. All the strong men are no longer there because they weren't buying into this. Or some of them were in there for long that they were afraid that if they didn't take the shot, they wouldn't get their pensions. It's horrible. Those who recovered from COVID-19 were conferred infection-acquired immunity. But herd immunity is a real concept and a current supported by public health leaders such as Fauci. There was a coordinated effort from the public health officials to ignore natural immunity and suppress dissenting opinions. You ever heard of the Twitter files? Vaccine mandates were not supported by science and caused more harm than good. They caused massive collateral damage and were very likely counterproductive. Vaccine mandates were not supported by science. Vaccine mandates hampered U.S. military readiness. And it says the COVID vaccine, while largely safe and effective, had adverse events that must be thoroughly investigated. This is the part that I don't like. This is the rhinos that are then they're still covering their ass. The COVID-19 vaccine, after they said all those things up to this point, while largely safe and effective, had adverse events that must be thoroughly investigated. No. If you took a vaccine or a shot for COVID and nothing happened to you, you took a placebo. Guaranteed. The Vaccine Adverse Event Response System, VAERS, VAERS, is insufficient and not transparent. Existing vaccine safety systems may be missing important safety signals. And the U.S. Center for Disease and Control and Prevention created a new surveillance system specifically for COVID-19 vaccines, but has not been fully transparent in sharing the data collected in it. Again, all these people make their salary through the people, we the people, through our tax dollars. There should be no such word called transparency. If you can't give me the data that you got, then you're removed from your job and the funding you got is reversed. And if you're in a building with all that type of, it's closed. You see, when they do things like that, that's exactly what should happen. You just stop it right and nip it in the bud. That's it. Then you get people on the news talking about how they just lost their job because, why? Because they weren't telling the damn truth. Why are we messing with stuff like this? Why are we in China taking the flu and weaponizing it and then distributing it through the atmosphere so that it floats around the globe in, what's the name of the exact word where the wind stream carries it from one continent to the next? It's all done by design, folks. Believe it or don't believe it, I don't care. Get the article and read it for yourself. I mean, maybe you don't like how I'm reading it, and that's okay. The U.S. government's insufficient systems for compensating COVID-19 vaccine injuries. I mean, they forced you to take it to keep your job, to whatever. You know what I mean? So they should have to compensate. So should Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and any other one that I'm forgetting. The erosion of the doctor-patient relationship during the COVID-19 pandemics. I lost my doctor during COVID-19 because he wouldn't go against his Hippocratic oath. We had an issue arise. We were a little nervous. Had a daughter that was terminally ill and didn't want to, in the beginning, didn't want to bring this stuff home and do any more damage to her than what was. So get a hold of my doctor, ask him the proper channels, how he wants me to come in, do the tests and this, that, and the other. And we're probably talking in April of 2020, maybe. April, end of April, somewhere in there. And so he just tells me to come in, wear a mask. So I put a mask on, get in there. The nurse has got a mask on, and my doctor walks on in and no mask. So we do the test where he crams the damn swab all the way up into your brain. They spin it around. We ain't going to find nothing because that's not the proper procedure of how things work, right? So my doctor begins to tell me that he's not traveling down this road of tyrannical federalism on the medical profession more than what it's already been. And so he lets me know that he's going to retire. And so I got to find another doctor now. Me, my wife, our family, because our doctor no longer exists. And the new set of doctors, they're playing by the rules of this Biden administration. So took a little bit of time, a little over a year, but I was smart. I did an interview process. I interviewed 2 doctors, one male, one female. And in the end, we chose the female, and she's wonderful. And when I interviewed her, because my insurance through my employer is exceptionally well, and the doctors in our area, they absolutely love it. So I wanted to vet my doctor. I wanted to make sure that my doctor wasn't going to push this garbage on me or my family. I was going to make sure that my doctor was going to treat me as a patient per her Hippocratic Oath and education, and not by some federally funded bylaws that they wanted them to follow. And in the end, after an hour interview, we decided that we would go with her and her practice, and we've been there ever since. And I guess it's around 2021, the end of 21. Because like I said, it was April or May when all that went down with us, and we lost our doctor because he retired. He did the right thing. Now, he'd been in the profession for a while, so he was pretty good set up and wasn't going to mess with him. Would wonder now if he's back out there now that all this has gone down the way that it has. But have a great doctor, And I can't wait to discuss this report with her when I go see her next, because she loves this stuff like this, because she wants to know her patients, which is nice, because we were losing all that. So back to this report. Pandemic era policies often dysregulated or outright violated the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship, which is what I just talked about. The use of off-label prescriptions was unjustly demonized and further eroded the doctor-patient relationship because they wanted you to use what they wanted you to use. The economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic and associated government response on individuals, communities, small business, healthcare providers, states, and local governments. The lockdowns and imposed mandatory lockdowns were the primary cause of temporary and permanent business closures. We know that today some businesses will never open again. Some business closures disproportionately impacted rural and low-income housing areas. It led to long-term changes in these areas, absolutely. The lack of supply chain diversity exasperated economic and business recovery. We ought to know now that we shouldn't be dependent on anybody. Excuse me, guys. We shouldn't be dependent on any other country. We should be making it right here. Right here, whatever it is. I get that we may have to get some things from other countries in order to make the things that we need to cover the supply chain in this country. I get that. But we're going to have to do a better job of not depending on everything else. I mean, in my life, I was told dependency was only one thing, and it was on Jesus. Because every time you tried to depend on something else, it would always fail, or it did fail, or would fail, or something. But the one thing that never failed was Jesus. So this lack of supply chain diversity in our country, it's got to change. It says public health officials arbitrary and overly broad mitigated measures and aggressive efforts to squash legitimate scientific debate unnecessarily exacerbated unemployment. Pandemic unemployment disproportionately impacted sectors with lower wages. The Federal Reserve's effort to mitigate the economy or the economic impact of COVID-19, they just kept printing money. The Federal Reserve likely exceeded its role and responsibility to provide market liquidity and acting as a lender of last resort by assuming the role and responsibility of the Department of Treasury by acting as a spender to prevent market insolvency. Remember those checks? $750 twice and whatever it was. Remember? Stimulus checks. Don't have to worry about paying them back. We've been paying for them ever since they gave them to you. The social impact decisions to close schools. How the decisions were made. COVID-19 pandemic era school closures. Long-term school closures were not supported by available science or evidence. The American Federations of Teachers' influence. The American Federation of Teachers is not a scientific or medical organization. And that's another thing. I don't know how many of you idiots out there, and I ain't talking to the people that listen to this show often. I'm talking about the people they probably talk to, who thought that the teacher or the Board of Education or the representative that was supposedly elected to be a part of that had more foreknowledge than a scientist about how this stuff's supposed to go. Stupid. I blame the 60% of the weak-ass people in this country. If you took a shot voluntarily, you're part of that problem. If you took a shot to keep your job, I understand. Hopefully you get to sue the fuck out of them. If you took a shot to keep, like it was a, quid pro quo. You got to do this to keep that, to support your family. I get it. But it still sucks. Because at some point we're supposed to unite to stop this type of tyranny. The American Federation of Teachers did not support reopening schools and predicted its support for reopening schools on non-scientific policies. As a matter of fact, They were all vacationing. The Biden administration's U.S. Center for Disease Control Prevention broke precedent, shared a draft guidance with the American Federations of Teachers. And then the CDC accepted the American Federation of Teachers' edits to the operational strategy. Can you believe that? The harmful impacts from school closures. I mean, we're at page 400 and something now, right? School closures were made, an already alarming trend in declining physical health worse. Cooperation by the executive branch and others with Congress, the Inspector General, Government Accountability Office, and others in connection with oversight of the preparedness for the response to the coronavirus pandemic. The Biden administration's U.S. Department of Health and Human Services deliberately obfuscated evidence that could incriminate or embarrass senior public health officials. We told you guys all this a long time ago, while this was happening live, like actual, that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they don't care about you. They deliberately obfuscated evidence that could incriminate or embarrass senior public health officials. So if you work for a health department and your boss, they protected his ass. Who? The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. He lied, read from a paper, just like all the news outlets. They all read from a script. Sinclair Media, he owns 100 more of them. Soros, that dude, he's getting involved in all that. They read from a script. They're saying the same things over and over and over again. You don't believe me?
You remember in the beginning days of the pandemic when they were really fear-mongering, when they gave a preposterous number of people that were going to die from COVID? Yes. And what was the percentage at the high point? Was it like 3.5% or something like that? It was something nutty. There's a compilation video, Jamie, see if you can find it, where they're dunking on Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump said, I've heard it's less than 1%. He was right.
He was totally correct.
Quite a bit less than 1%.
In a lot of conversations with a lot of people that do this, I think the number is way under 1%.
So to fact check, the World Health Organization says the coronavirus death rate is 3.4%.
President Trump lies that the World Health Organization is wrong.
The number is 3.4%. 3.4% is what it's being reported around.
My boy Sanjay.
The death rate.
The percentage is 3.4%. And no hunch from the president can change that.
Trump lied about the most recent World Health Organization estimate that the global death rate of coronavirus is 3.4%.
Jesus.
The 3.4% death rate was wrong, and WHO data later updated it to
a fraction of 1%.
Let's go back into history.
Trump has a hunch that the death rate is lower than 1%.
Way under 1%.
Way under 1%. Will someone put a mozzarella stick in his stupid hole?
Trump lied to viewers about the mortality rate.
Way under 1%.
False information.
He's spreading disinformation. Misinformation and dangerous disinformation. If you're president of the United States, you have the world's greatest scientists at your disposal. You listen to them.
Leading scientists, including Dr. Fauci, wrote in the New England Journal of Medicine that the death rate could be considerably less than 1%.
Way under 1%.
Why are you
See, this is we've seen enough. These people are fucking puppets, man. They're puppets, and they willfully, gleefully repeat these narratives.
See what I mean? See what I mean? They gleefully and willfully. They don't care. They don't care about you and me. So, EcoHealth. Let's do this.
You remember in the beginning?
Yeah, remember in the beginning days of the pandemic. There we go. There we go. EcoHealth Alliance Inc. and Dr. Peter Daszak obstructed the select subcommittee's investigation and misled the public. is going on? How about that? Is that better? Hello? I was getting an echo in my ear. I was just making sure that the echo wasn't live. Hopefully it's not. It says Equal Health Alliance obstructed a congressional investigation. They doctored documents and released it to the public. Should terrify the hell out of you guys. Terrifies the hell out of me. Dr. David Morin's likely destroyed evidence, used personal email to hide from accountability, and acted unbecoming of a federal employee. New York Governor Kelly Hochul's administration withheld key documents from the select subcommittee based on claimed privilege. It's amazing. These are all acronyms so that when you go through it, you will see list of hearings and meetings. Like I said, this thing's 557 pages long. And so we just read basically the right here. The origins of corona pandemic, including but not limited to the federal government's funding of gain of function research. SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, likely emerged because of a laboratory or research-related accident. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is not a natural, real virus. It's a man-made virus. What did they use? SARS. SARS is the what? Acute respiratory system. I forget what the first S stands for. Basically, the flu. They just try to acronym the hell out of it. 4 years after the onset of the worst pandemic in 100 years, it's a lie. It's a fabricated pandemic. The weight of the evidence increasingly supports the lab leak hypothesis. In January 21, the State Department published an unclassified fact sheet entitled Activity at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and it stated the following: the U.S. government has reasons to believe that several researchers inside became sick in the autumn of 19 before the first identified case of the outbreak, with the symptoms consistent with both COVID-19 and common seasonal illness. You believe that? The June 23 ODNI Office, National ODNI, darn it, I forget what it means. Office, something of National, anyway. Assessment entitled Potential Leaks Between the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the Origins of COVID-19 support this conclusion. And what's that conclusion? That the government has reason to believe that several researchers inside Wuhan Institute of Virology became sick in autumn of 2019. Despite the WIF presenting itself as a civilian institute, the United States has determined that the WIV collaborated on publications and secret projects with China's military. Again, the ODNI supports this. There's another one down here. I want to. See, these are correspondence. Talks about the 5 keys. So first, it emerged in Wuhan, the city that happens to be the location of China's foremost research lab SARS-like virus. Next, a year before The outbreak, EcoHealth, in partnership with Wuhan, in great application to DARPA, proposed to create a virus with SARS-CoV-2. Proposed. You see that? And DARPA. Do you see that, people? So you got a year before the outbreak in 2018, you got EcoHealth, the Wuhan Institution for Virology, a grant application to DARPA proposed to create a virus with the SARS-CoV-2 defining features in their application to DARPA. Third, the WIV has a track record of engaging in this type of airborne viral research under low biosafety conditions. Fourth, the evidence supporting that COVID-19 came from an animal at the Hunan seafood market in Wuhan is tenuous. Furthermore, no affected animal has been verified at the Wuhan market or supply chain. And finally, key evidence that would be expected if the virus had emerged from a wildlife trade is still missing. In previous outbreaks, such as SARS in 2002, MERS in 2012, infected animals were found. The earliest cases occurred in people exposed to live animals, and ancestral variants of the virus found in animals were discovered, but none of this evidence has been discovered for COVID-19. The proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2 was prompted by Dr. Anthony Fauci to disprove the lab leak theory. Yeah, most of these people should be in jail. See, here's a bunch of emails as you go through this. I've gotten pretty far through, but not completely the whole thing. But they're talking to each other. They're corresponding. Some are believing it, some are not. They go through here and they pick and choose what articles and media outlets and magazine outlets that they want to publish these things in there. Then you got the WHO. Then you got the WHO. See the possible motives of a proximal origin. These are four of different scientists, all with their own different version. The redactedness of this. The involvement of Fauci, Collins, and Ferrara. It's amazing. The truth is finally out, you know. And I was just looking for one more thing. I was trying to find the WHO part. Probably should have done a better job of notating where I needed to be. See the publication of the proximal origin. This is where they talk about which outlets they wanted to give this to. Some declined. See, gets rejected by the magazine Nature. They didn't want to be a part of that without proof. Anonymous whistleblowers. They attacked them. See here on February 19th, 2020, the proximal origin was cited in the letter in the Lancet titled Statement in Support of Scientists, Public Health Professions, and Medical Professions, China in Combating COVID-19. It was later found out that that was a lie. That article was removed and taken away. And I don't know where the Lancet is now, but kind of hoping that they don't keep their stature or status based on that. White House press conferences, see? All this stuff is... See, Fauci, Collins, McNeil. The failures of EcoHealth Alliance, see there? EcoHealth Alliance facilitated gain-of-function research in the Wuhan. What is gain-of-function research? It goes through, tells that explicitly. Okay. By the time I stop, I'll find what I was looking for. These are emails. This is correspondence between them, questions and answers. See that? Q&A. When they testified. This gentleman right here, he must resign. This Robert Malone. This gentleman right here, he must resign. Of course, it has nothing to do with the United States, but it says the U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee on the Coronavirus Pandemic released a 500-plus page report, which is what we were just going through, from 2 years of investigating, will be read into congressional record on December 4th. With this essay, we now turn to the underreported aspect of this report, collusion between the World Health Organization, under that gentleman, and the CCP. This is on Substack, people, that you can go in there and Robert Malone, right here, December 3rd, 2024. Yeah, goes into it pretty good. See this? This is from January 22nd, 2021. Notice of unlawful orders of Biden administration and treason. This article goes through. That's just a year. How many days is that? After his damn supposed inauguration? Essentially, Biden's presidential election was a result of a multi-dimensional fraud that consisted of mail-in ballots to justify the Chinese virus. Chinese Communist Party purchased Dominion voting machine with software that manipulated the election's numbers to a predetermined percentage. Fake ballots transported into vote counting polls to reflect the fake computer manipulations. And delusional Democrats, fake Republicans, and mainstream media that was hysterically and obsessed with removing Trump by all means necessary. The Supreme Court also seemed to play a passive-aggressive role by abandoning its constitutional duty to rule on controversies between the states when they tried to say they have no standing. Remember that? Maybe some of you do, maybe some of you don't. I seem to remember because this subject was pretty important to me. My employer tried to get me to take it, and I wouldn't. And of course, like everybody else, we had a fire date. So if you didn't have it together by then you was fired. And in the end, I don't think anybody got fired. I know a whole lot of people that took the shot to save their job. And ultimately, in the end, some of them paid the price for their health for it and reasons with it. So if you guys are watching this, like it, share it, follow it. Like I said, I apologize. I don't feel very well. This crap that's going around. Of course, the weather's doesn't help when it's 80 degrees one day and 30 degrees the next. And gives you the sore throat and the cough and all that good stuff. And it's been a long time since I've been sick, or feel like crap, and so I apologize. But I wanted to get this article, this report out, because this is something that's, we can never let this happen again. Doesn't matter what they say, Doesn't matter if it's a pandemic. It doesn't matter what they say. We can't allow them to mandate, edict, any of these things in the name of social justice, safety, wokeism, whatever. And hopefully we're better for it. Hopefully we'll stand. We'll see. Still got a lot of comfortable people out there. Still got a lot of comfortable people out there. If you are a Vols fan like I am, the SEC ACC Men's Challenge is on, and Tennessee in dark mode is 87-64 over Syracuse. Just in case you were wondering. I love me some Vols now, let's tell you that. All right, let's go into some caught up content here real quick. And did you know Joe Biden pardoned Hunter Biden? Pretty sure a lot of people know now, don't they? Watch this. Try this again, okay? Crazy.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one 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 is above the law.
Oh, son of a bitch.
That's pretty cool. Right there. No one is above the law. Took me a minute to get that stupid thing to work out right, but it was pretty cool. It is pretty cool. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Hang on. Like. All right. Uh-oh. Hello? Okay. I'm just going to leave it at that. 96-70, Tennessee wins over Syracuse. in the SEC ACC Men's Challenge. So if you wanted an update, did my show in the middle of the game. At least I had it on mute, I could watch it. But it's important. What they did to us as a country, what they did to us in a world. They used a pandemic to manipulate an election. They used the pandemic to manipulate a lot of things. And then this final report's probably not going to get anybody in trouble. Be surprised to see anybody in jail. But we know as a country and as a nation that we can never let those things happen again. The Faucis of the world shall never walk down the street quite the same way. If I ever see Dr. Fauci, I'm going to call him out for what he is, a fraud. I doubt that I'll be that lucky. I don't think he'll ever be in my neck of the woods, because my neck of the woods is probably pretty rough compared to where his comfortable ass is at the moment. So, but anyhow, the Doge with Elon and Vivek, excited about how all that's supposed to turn out. This report, it's pretty damning and should make a lot of people think about the next thing that they try to throw at us. So, with that being said, guys, go back and look, go back and read, go back, just whatever. My episode 4, go back and look at that one, and it goes into those articles that were from 2020 and 2021. Yeah. So, totally different to my show back then than what it is now. And it's going to change again soon. So, we'll be in the new location. Supposed to have the electric on by Friday. A lot of these things are out of my control, but it is what it is. So, thank you for watching Caught Up. I apologize for not feeling good, being sick. As I said, I really wanted to get this information out. Please like, share, and follow. We're on Facebook, YouTube, obviously Rumble. And, man, we can never let this happen to us again. Not quite this way, so I hope I get to feeling better, guys. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
My heart pumping all day long, getting me to morning when darkness comes. My heart, ooh. It takes so long to mend. It's harder to lean on this shell of a man. You found love in the Lord, your family and your friends. Could you please pray for me that I can find the same within? My heart pumping all day long. When the evening comes, I'm gonna pick my bones up and walk through the storm I made. I'm gonna head on home before it gets too late. I turn it upside down and be thankful for what he gave. I'm gonna pick my bones up and walk through the storm I made. I'm gonna hold on tight to you when it gets rough. I'm gonna lay down all my cards and call your bluff. Because the one thing in this moonlit room I trust is the beauty of your smile and the warmth inside your touch. Oh, there's nothing like a love, nothing like a love of a woman. The way she holds you tight, the way she holds you tight when you need it most. Just that little bit, just to keep on living. That's when you find out what you're made of. I'm gonna pick my bones up and walk through the storm I made. I'm gonna head on home before it gets too late. I turn it upside down and be thankful for what he gave. I'm gonna pick my bones up and walk through the storm I made. I'm gonna hold on tight to you when it gets rough. Yeah. I'm gonna lay down all my cards and call your bluff. Because the one thing in this moonlit room I trust is the beauty of your smile and the warmth inside your touch. Oh, there's nothing like love, nothing like love of a woman. The way she holds you tight, way she holds you tight when you need it most. Gives you just that little bit, just to keep on living. And that's when you find out what you're made of. That's when you find out. That's when you find out what you're made of.